the nonprofit organization I chose to create is called Belchertown KFS, which stands for Kids for Sustainability. Children are our future and deserve a clean, healthy, and sustainable place to live and thrive. This nonprofit will help them understand what they can do to help while providing education and activities to promote better, cleaner, sustainable living for children in Belchertown, Massachusetts. There is a need for educating Belchertown's children how to use resources wisely and to educate them on the effects of climate change. The education provided in schools is limited as it must be provided alongside all of the other subjects. Teaching children at a young age to become conscious of their impact on the planet will hopefully lead to a better, more sustainable world, even if it's happening in only one town at a time. To get the organization started, or to start any nonprofit, a name for the organization has to be created. So we created Belchertown KFS. From there, additional legal documents must be created, which include articles of incorporation. This document is filed with the government to establish the existence of the organization. And then the bylaws for the organization. According to Harbor Compliance, bylaws are the governing document for a nonprofit corporation, and they supplement the rules already defined by the state's corporation code. They'll guide how your nonprofit is run. And in order to gain 501c3 status at the federal and state tax exempt status for Belchertown KFS, the following requirements will need to be met. So at the federal level, the organization has to submit both an IRS Form SS4 and IRS Form 1023. The SS4 form is how the organization will apply for an EIN, or Employer Identification Number. And even though the organization will not have employees, this number still has to be created and assigned to the organization for tax filing and reporting purposes. The Form 1023 is a specific application for the recognition of the exemption from the federal income tax for 501c3 organizations. And this form should be filed within 27 months from when the organization filed its articles of incorporation. This will ensure that the organization's tax exempt status will be effective as of the date that document was filed. 501c3 organizations must also register with their state, so Belchertown KFS would register the organization in Massachusetts. Massachusetts Nonprofit Organization Division charges a fee of $100 for registration of the nonprofit organization and requires copies of the following documents along with registration. The Irs Determination Letter, this is your federal exemption letter that you get if you're approved, a list of the organization's board of directors, and a certificate of exemption, Form ST2, so this is to obtain the exemption from Massachusetts sales tax. So the organization would have to apply for a certificate of exemption, which is that Form S2 form from the Department of Revenue. And then lastly, if the organization intends to solicit funds from the public, it also has to apply for a certificate for solicitation with the division. There are other documents that will need to be filed annually for federal and state taxes. So the IRS Form 990, which is an annual information return, and this is a public document that anyone can view. Form PC is a required annual filing that all nonprofits conducting business in Massachusetts must complete. And this form will contain basic information on the organization as well as the financial data related to funding and expenses. Listed here are some additional documents that Belchertown KFS will create just as best practices. So we have a code of ethics here, gift acceptance policy, volunteer and board job descriptions. When operating a nonprofit, it's important to establish policies that will dictate how the organization is going to operate. And some organizations call this a code of ethics, statement of values, or even the code of conduct. According to the Council of Nonprofits, when board members are of a charitable nonprofit adopt a code of ethics, they're expressing their commitment to ethical behavior, and it's extremely important for nonprofit organizations to gain and keep the trust of their donors and supporters. To do that, it has to be honest, ethical, transparent, and maintain integrity. Belchertown KFS is run on volunteers 100%. Therefore, clear volunteer descriptions will be outlined for each volunteer category. The board will also be made aware of its role, including its duty to assist in the recruiting of volunteers and encouraging or actively seeking support in the form of fundraising or partnerships. Belchertown KFS serves the Belchertown children, parents of the Belchertown community and families of the Belchertown community. So in essence, the entire Belchertown community with a focus on children's education. So as you'll see when we cover the services and programs offered by the organization, the entire Belchertown community benefits here. While we are starting small, we would hope to encourage other towns to develop divisions of the Kids for Sustainability to make a larger impact. According to Worth in his book of Nonprofit Management Principles and Practice, mission is everything to a nonprofit organization, and it's the reason the organization exists. So I chose this statement because it captures the essence of the organization in just one sentence and could withstand time through anticipated environmental changes, helping children create a sustainable future one town at a time. Our vision statement. So Worth also explains vision in his text, stating that the vision statement is a description of an ideal future, and if Belchertown KFS is successful at its mission, this would be the ideal outcome. Children leading change in their community by promoting environmental protection and a happy, healthy, and sustainable future for all. So Belchertown KFS programs. The online education program is going to house fun, interactive videos teaching children about the importance of leading a sustainable life, not just for themselves, but for their community and beyond. It's going to provide information on what the effects of the depletion of natural resources are and provide small solutions that children can put into place to help cut down on consumption. The information will be geared towards children, and it's not to say that it's to scare them into action, but instead empower them to make small changes at home and eventually lead change in their community. Kids Against Litter will bring kids together with families and community friends to clean up the town streets and neighborhoods. This is a good time spent doing good things with the people of the community. And the Kids Crop Co-op is a community crop garden that fuels the crop share service provided to the town residents. And this is an income source for the organization. Not significant, but still some income. The bi-weekly can collection allows kids and volunteers to lead volunteer program leaders, the chance to help residents in the town recycle their unwanted plastic bottles and cans. The money earned from recycled cans will also help fund the program and services, which again is very minimal. Lastly, Town Shred Day. This is going to allow the community to gather and have paper documents shredded and recycled. Belchertown KFS will operate mostly on donations from the community, participants, and fundraising opportunities or events. Because Belchertown KFS will rely upon charitable contributions, it is the board and management's first goal to create a philanthropic culture throughout the organization. Jayo Associates talks about how important the culture of the organization is and how it is the personality of the organization. That the culture is transmitted from one individual to another. So it's important that all volunteers and board members embrace this culture and contribute to the ideas and efforts of fundraising. The organization will have an online presence and will actively update and invite the community to visit and receive notifications about its page. It'll also accept donations through its site. Utilizing social media, the organization will create accounts to build a stronger online presence. All sites and pages will promote and highlight the work the kids are doing in an effort to show the value of the contributions and boost brand recognition. The organization will also hold fundraising events. While Worth notes in his text that not all events are very cost effective, there is still some value when the community is invited to participate. And it again can promote visibility for the organization and can even be the first positive point of contact with prospective donors. Lastly, the organization will be working with the kids on the Kids Crop Co-op project. The crops will be provided to those who choose to invest and participate in the crop share the project creates. So here we have a simple budget for Belchertown KFS, and using Propel Nonprofit's advice from their article, Budgeting for Change, I built this budget to flex as budget needs to adapt to volatility and uncertainty of the times. So with COVID still presenting difficulties to many, I adjusted the budget to reflect its potential impact on 2021. The figures on the left are the supposed actual figures for 2020, and the figures to the right are the projected figures for 2021. Again, most of the funding comes from the donations, with a little bit being generated off of our Kids Crop Co-op. As you can see, There are no other expenses outside of what it costs to run our programs and host fundraising efforts. All staff are volunteers, so there are no salary or other compensation expenses. The organization's Form 990 will show how the organization is managing its funds and will be provided to the public with the intent of transparency for donors' expectations. And lastly, I'll define the roles and responsibilities from the board of directors down to specific volunteer types by function. But doing so is really important for nonprofits. Considering the organization is run solely from volunteer work, it's critical each person knows what their specific role is and how much the organization is depending on them. The board of directors are ultimately responsible for the success of the organization, and according to work, the board determines the mission and vision of the organization, provides financial oversight, approves and monitors programs to ensure they align with the organization's mission, select and support the CEO, and uphold their duty of care, duty of loyalty, and duty of obedience. The board of Belchertown KFS are also required to act as ambassadors of the organization, so it is expected of them to make connections between the organization and members of the community. They are also expected to help with fundraising, planning, and efforts. The CEO of the organization works closely with the board to ensure volunteer staff are working the programs, services, and other areas of operations in accordance with the board's intent. The volunteer staff manage the day-to-day organization, from educations and educators to fundraising managers to parents helping lead cleanup walks or shred days. The volunteers are the ones that make it all happen. And that is the end of my presentation on the Belchertown KFS, Kids for Sustainability nonprofit organization. Here is my work cited. Thank you for the last 6 weeks, and I hope to take a class with you again.